Everything.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network. Let's get this party started, and we're going to get you ready for your sports weekend. I'm Ashton.
I'm Tony.
I'm Landen.
Hey, get those energy drinks. You got your Celsius this morning. I got a cup of coffee. Landon, you're going dry this morning? You're going solo with nothing?
Dry, you make it sound like he's an alcoholic.
You know, these kids these days, man.
He probably is at this point. I don't know. I'm getting too old for this. Again, thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. Go ahead and hit that notification button so you know when we go live or when any new episodes drop. And then also listen to your favorite Peak One Sports Network shows, however you listen to podcasts. And also go check out our website, peakonesportsnetwork.com. What's going on, guys? We're getting there, man.
We're almost through the summer, right?
NFL football started, preseason anyway. College football is only a couple of weeks away. I know we were talking about it pre-show, that all the topics, and I'm telling we need to make sure we're hit this point at this time, and it's just going to get harder from here on out.
Yeah, luckily we're getting these, we're going to talk about it, these documentaries coming out. I think the timing of those types of things, I think they do that for a reason, knowing this is a slow sports meet. Besides MLB baseball, there's not a whole lot. I mean, even your baseball season's done, just when you get towards the end of summer, everything's wrapping up. You only have baseball, man, but we're about, 4 weeks out to just being full on college football, NFL football. Shortly after that, NBA will ramp back up.
Yeah, and like you said, we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff. We're going to talk the Johnny Manziel documentary. Just drop a lot of bombshells in that, and just kind of like
we're going to talk Hard Knocks,
Aaron Rodgers, and Jets training camp preseason, a lot of preseason stuff, and a lot more. But first, we're going to recognize one of our sponsors, Betalytics. Don't bet with your gut. The Betalytics dashboards allow you to quickly identify the top graded best bets and hottest trends. Betalytics uses AI machines to learn algorithms and create accurate game simulations, player prop projections, betting line evaluations, and best bet recommendations. Use promo code PEAK1 for 25% off when you sign up today. Go to betalytics.com to start betting smarter. Later today, we'll have the Prop Bet Saturday. We'll have Prop Bet Saturday brought to you by Betalytics. And also, Landon, you're going to tell me, we're good on a camera angle? Yeah. Our Betalytics giveaway, we're going to give away this hat right here. Just comment down below. Tell us you want this hat. Follow us on social media. Message us, comment. Just say, hey, I want that Betalytics hat. And then, however, if you comment on YouTube, make sure to tell us how to get a hold of you. Because it looks pretty spammy when we say, hey, you won.
Yeah.
So make sure, and also, just on that note, we will never ask you to give us information here on YouTube. If we say you won, we want you to go to our social media. We don't need any
private messages.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't need any scammers using our photo and saying you won and giving you. We'll never take credit card information. All this is free. It's why it's called a giveaway. But just throwing it out there.
Yeah, we just need a shipping address where to ship it to, or if you happen to luck out and be local, we'll meet you.
Yeah. So if you comment on here, tell us, put your Facebook tag, or we'll comment and say, hey, you won. Comment, reach us on social media at Peak One Sports, just so everybody knows. But let's just jump right into it. Let's go ahead and talk Jets on Hard Knocks.
Man, I text you this week after I watched the episode 1. I'm on the Jets train, man. I'm on it.
Aaron Rodgers is going to take him to the promised land.
I think that team is so talented, and I think they were talented. I mean, you got Sauce Gardner. I mean, they really are a phenomenal team. They really are a good team. I think they were missing that. I mean, Zach Wilson is not the leader of the team. I think that Aaron Rodgers could help develop Zach Wilson and could help his maturity level. I think that's where, and you can see that in Hard Knocks a little bit, his maturity level isn't there to run a franchise, I
think they're more of a young team that didn't have a
Yeah.
veteran presence at an important position.
Yeah.
And let's not lie, Aaron Rodgers brought some players over.
Yeah.
Sure.
Alan
Not-
Lazard.
Not
Cobb came over. I
Randall
mean,
Cobb's kind of older
but,
into his season.
but
I
I
don't
think
know how much
that was. But I
of
don't think.
impact he'll make on the field.
Yeah, but in the locker room, I think that's big for this young receiving group.
It's not
I
quite
think
what
that's
Tom
big.
Brady took to Tampa, but Cobb is to Rodgers as Gronk is to Tom Brady. I think it's just, although even in Tampa, Gronk was putting up stats, but I think Rodgers is bringing him for a reason. Whatever your thoughts on Rodgers, you might dislike him, think he's kind of douchey. He is kind of out there, and maybe if you're just not, you just hate the Packers, and that's just where he comes from. He has won, and he's been successful. Yeah, just won Super Bowl, but he proves he knows about football. And him bringing Randall Cobb, you may think, that's just a retreaded tire type of player, but Aaron Rodgers knows what he's doing. And again, he may have more output in the locker room than necessarily on the field.
Yeah.
And tell a lot of these Jets players, because they're a young team, tell them this is what Aaron Rodgers expects. This is what you need to do to make sure you earn his respect, and this is how to be successful with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like we said, it's a young team.
But we've seen it. We've seen
a guy
it
like, they have Garrett Wilson. That kid's a great ball player. They get the wide receiver, him and Sauce Gardner come in last year as rookies. Still young guys, so talented. But a guy like Garrett Wilson, it would be great to have, to have a mentor like Cobb there.
He was talking about it on Hard Knocks about the impact that Rodgers already made.
Yeah.
Has been there.
I mean, you're talking about a young group,
and
I think they even mentioned it on the show. Most of these younger guys, they were like 10, 11 years old watching Rodgers play.
Yeah.
And now they're playing with him, a decade later.
Well, it really goes to show that a lot of teams are just a quarterback away, because the Buccaneers weren't even a playoff team.
No.
Tom Brady goes there. Yes, he brings Gronk and a couple other players, but we're talking about how great the defense is. For the last 3 years.
You can look at the biggest one that sticks out. I mean, I don't know if there's another team is the Dallas Cowboys.
When Romo goes down, when Dak goes
I would
down.
say now when Dak, even with Dak, there's always question: is he the quarterback? This team's ready. That Cowboys team's absolutely ready. I think this Jets team is so on the verge of being making a deep run in the playoffs. This could be the team.
Look at the Kansas City Chiefs too. I mean, now, they're stacked with talent, but they go from Alex Smith as their quarterback, and then Patrick Mahomes comes in, and immediately they're making AFC championships.
I mean, one of the
every single year.
But I think it was before the Jets picked up Rodgers. Zach Wilson said, "If whoever you bring in, I'm going to make their life hell." And you think, "Oh, this kid's cocky," and then they say Rodgers is coming. You're like, "Okay, good luck with that."
Yeah.
You watch no one sees those behind the scenes until you do Hard Knocks. That you see that this kid's not that bad. Like, he's not mature, he's young, but you see him learning and working and talking, and when he's working with Aaron Rodgers, you can see him picking his brain. You can see him ask, "Hey, this is what I saw here on this play." They had some of the footage from the Hall of Fame game. He's on the sidelines. Rodgers didn't play. Rodgers has a headset, and I think he even had a mic in Zach Wilson's ear, and he's saying, "Hey, look here. Hey, look here." Zach Wilson comes to sideline. They're on the tablet, and he's showing, "Hey, this is what I saw here," and I thought that he's working through. I think that this may be not just for the Jets, but for Zach Wilson's career, having Aaron Rodgers.
He's got to be ready to go as well. I mean, looking at Aaron Rodgers' career, he's getting up there, that there may be an opportunity for Zach Wilson to jump in here. Just because Aaron Rodgers has not been injury prone, but he's missed some games the last few years just from that. And, maybe who knows how long Aaron Rodgers is going to be with New York, but maybe, like you said, getting mentorship from Aaron Rodgers, maybe that's what he needs. And if he can show out, maybe next year he goes to another team and has a chance, or possibly with the Jets, depending on how long he wants to wait.
We all know that when you make it to the NFL, it's not for lack of talent.
Yeah.
You could say, "Oh, this guy doesn't have this or that." All of these guys are talented. They can all play. It's mentally, are they prepared to play at that level and to put a franchise? Because no matter what, when you're the quarterback of one of the 32 NFL teams, you're putting that franchise on your back and carrying them. And
Yeah.
some guys just aren't built for that. And it doesn't take away anything of your talent.
Guys like Mariota, Winston, Manziel,
Yeah.
great college players, but didn't translate back into the NFL during their rookie year and their
most of
2
that,
seasons.
as you can see, is a lot of maturity level. You know, a Manziel guy with a maturity level. A Baker Mayfield, we haven't seen yet if he can get over that hump.
Yeah.
A lot of his looks like a maturity thing. It's not a talent. I mean, that kid can throw a ball, you know?
Speaking of taking a franchise on your shoulders, quarterback finally going to have the chance to do that, Jordan Love. Now that Aaron Rodgers is out of Green Bay, he's got a chance. He looked, as much as you can rely on preseason, he looks pretty good. 7 for 10, 46 yards and a touchdown.
And for what little we've seen of him in the past, and even in regular season games, again, that kid can play ball. And he seems to have that maturity level. And if this works out again, that Green Bay model is the way to go, is to draft a guy behind a guy. You know, don't wait until you need your quarterback to
Although they've
draft him.
pissed off 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks doing it.
Sure, but
I think they
made a Hall of Fame quarterback.
it's
too.
worked
Exactly.
out. It's worked out
Exactly.
for them. Maybe they, in hindsight's 2020, but maybe they were a couple years behind that. But yeah, they did get Aaron Rodgers, and it worked out. It pushed Brett Favre out, and Aaron Rodgers sat for a few years.
Yeah.
And we were thinking the same. Aaron Rodgers wasn't a big time quarterback coming out. He did drop, and we expected him to be a first round pick. But Jordan Love's kind of the same thing. Jordan Love isn't this huge quarter, and even Aaron Rodgers at when we saw him, he looked good, but nobody expected him to be what he is, a Hall of Fame quarterback.
yeah, I mean, there really is very few of those guys that are number 1, number 2 overall that actually pan out. You know, you look at every draft in the history, and you see, you know, if you have 2, 3, or 4 quarterbacks go in the first round, one of them might actually hit.
And the next one, we've already talked a couple things on this. We hit Tampa Bay and we hit Baker Mayfield, so we'll go there. Baker Mayfield versus Kyle Trask. Is this even worth talking about? I mean, the Bucs kind of screwed. It's like, which one's going to be the worst? Are you at a point you're like, it doesn't matter, we want to tank anyways? Or do you think in a crappy division, or we'll just say a lesser division in the NFC South, that this does make a difference? Let's see what we can do with these guys and possibly win the division.
On par with the worst quarterback room in the NFL, maybe tied with San Francisco, where they're stuck between 2 people who barely played last year and they don't know which one's better.
Maybe worse situation, because San Francisco has a lot more talent.
Yeah,
Like, I think they have
around
some problems.
outside of their quarterback. Yeah,
I'm not gonna go to the point where I don't know, because they have promise. You have Brock Purdy injured. I mean, you have a lot of quarterbacks in that room, but there's potential there. Something could come out of that.
I think Brock Purdy is looking to be the starter.
But you have 3 options there where if any of those 3 options go, you're like, okay, the team's talented. Let's see what happens. I mean, on paper, not even on paper, just in your minds, you think Baker Mayfield's more talented than Kyle Trask. But either way,
heard stuff about that Baker Mayfield might not be winning that quarterback battle right now.
and in that quarterback room, you're thinking, we're talking maturity issues. Where does that go where Baker Mayfield goes from planting the flag on the field of Ohio State to being a first-round quarterback, the savior of Cleveland, to now he's competing against Kyle Trask?
Cleveland's had 2.
Drop.
Baker won the Heisman, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So
Number 1 overall pick.
They've had 2 number 1 overall picks, 2 Heismans. Flop. Both quarterbacks.
Even with that, we're not getting into when did Cleveland really start. We know they were an expansion team, but that's not looked at. But since they came back in 98, whatever, Baker Mayfield's the most successful quarterback. Let's just throw it out there. I mean, and he did have a good year. He did have a good season and a half, and then come subpar seasons.
The first time,
but that's what they're known for.
He was good.
Yeah, that's what they're known for, is quarterback flops.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have to say it's a quarterback flop because he was the number 1 overall pick.
Again,
but he's had a lot more success than some quarterbacks, not just in Cleveland.
Like we talked about with Green Bay, Cleveland hasn't had a guy that they can bring in a rookie and allow them to mature and learn the game behind anyone.
They've been so bad that soon we
Yeah, I mean,
we talked about Manziel. We're going to talk about Manziel. Colt McCoy was Colt McCoy. Yeah, he was drafted by the Brady Quinn. Like all these Heisman winners or Heisman candidates, they bring in there and they're starting day one. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. What do they all have in common? They didn't start year one.
No.
Maybe there's that, but
but
Cleveland doesn't have
model.
Anybody. Deshaun Watson, you don't have somebody you can really sit behind.
Yeah.
Like Alex Smith probably doesn't have near as, I mean, not probably, he doesn't. I'm just saying probably not this year, but didn't have near as much talent as Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
But hell, he had a hand in shaping Mahomes.
Yeah.
He was a great quarterback.
Yeah.
Cleveland does have what's his name from Tennessee last year, quarterback.
Tannehill?
No,
He had the guy
that
without
had
the
leukemia.
eyebrows.
Yeah,
What's
he's
his
from
name?
UT.
Yeah.
From the University of Tennessee.
Yeah. I can't remember.
Josh Dobbs.
Yeah,
Dobbs,
Josh Dobbs.
He looked
pretty good.
He looked pretty good against the
Yeah.
Cowboys last year.
Again, Cleveland, not to get too far off topic, Cleveland needs to
No, we're talking quarterbacks and NFL
Cleveland needs
preseason.
to
No off topic.
they need to go into free agency and they need to try to get that blockbuster quarterback. If you could bring them into Cleveland. I don't know, man. I think maybe it's just the city, the situation, the team, everything about Cleveland that no one wants to be there. That unless their model is only to draft, I don't see them getting out of
What's
where
so
they're at.
bad
man.
about Cleveland? That's a whole nother show topic.
There was a
but
point in time where everybody was trying to go to Cleveland. They had Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham went there.
Yeah,
they had
that's when they had
a
Baker,
great
you know, there
team
was-
with Baker Mayfield
But again, you're putting the entire franchise
on a rookie
on
quarterback.
a rookie quarterback to
and
bring
free
you up
agents,
to
and that's
be the savior, the same as Manziel, the same as everyone we've talked
how
about.
often has that work where you draft the QB and everybody else is a free agent? That's not really how you. I understand when you're in the position, you're like, okay, we have something here. Then go after the free agents, and that anytime you sign a free agent, unless they just have some other issue, you're always overpaying.
Yeah.
Because it's a bidding war. You see it with the Texas Rangers now. When you're in a position, it's like we're going for it, you know. But I guess unless you're drafting the quarterback, which the Browns don't seem to be able to do, it's like draft everybody else. Like
Yeah.
the Cowboys accidentally lucked into
Deshaun
it.
Watson's probably the biggest free agency pickup or trade out of they trade for him.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest move they've made, I think, outside of drafting a quarterback.
Yeah.
Maybe he can come in and be something else for them. I mean,
I
he's
just wanna-
very talented.
But the
Throw
Cowboys
this out there
accidentally
about
lucked.
Deshaun Watson. He's getting paid more than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, his head cap hit is right now, yeah. But the
This
Cowboys
season.
accidentally lucked into it trying to find help for Romo, where they drafted around this team, and then Romo goes down, and then you have this rookie quarterback. Not that Dak Prescott wasn't really talented, but he had an
But you have
amazing
the weapons
offensive
to help
line.
you out.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
weapons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the Cowboys, you didn't really get to take advantage of Dak's rookie contract because you're still paying Romo for a few years. But that seems to be the model if you can do it. But it's kind of that's how the economy works of the NFL. When you have a top 5 pick and you're going to pay him top 5 money, you almost have to draft a quarterback
Yeah.
just to make it worth it. And if he flops, it flops. Draft another one. You do draft another one. Draft another one.
Yeah.
That seems like if you're in that mid tier where it's kind of like mid tier hell, where you never have a great draft pick, but you never have a good team. It's just draft around that and then either sign a quarterback or draft a quarterback. We're getting
Yeah.
way off topic. We've already mentioned we're talking quarterbacks, we're talking free agency, and we already talked San Francisco. What about this? Kyle Shanahan revealed on Thursday that if the 49ers would have defeated the Eagles in the AFC Championship game last year, they were going to go after Phillip Rivers to be their QB to
Going into the
face
Super Bowl.
Mahomes and the Chiefs. Now, of course, we know Brock Purdy got injured in that game, and Brock Purdy was like their 4th starting quarterback. What do y'all think about that? I mean,
What else
in
would
that-
they have done?
in that desperate situation, that's probably not bad. I mean, Phillip Rivers, he's got 10 kids. You know, he's running around and in shape. And that was
But at that point,
his
going
first
in-
year of retirement, right? Did Phillip Rivers? He didn't play that. Yeah, because Colts had all different. So I guess he did retire. He might have retired 2 years before because the Colts had
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan. Yeah, that's right. I was thinking that was the year before. So he's a couple years out of retirement. But yeah, who are you going to go for? That's your only option. Who is their? They have Christian McCaffrey was their backup
Emergency QB.
emergency QB in that game. So I mean, clearly you would have signed somebody. But yeah, that's not a bad. I don't know why it's just coming out now, but that wouldn't have been a bad deal. 49ers might have had a chance in that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have basically the roster to win a championship right now.
Yeah, you just
minus
need a guy
the quarterback.
to throw a ball.
Sam Darnold might lead them to a
All
championship.
he had to do is throw a ball. And really, I mean, he's a veteran quarterback, and it probably could have come in that 2-week span and for the most part, learn the offense.
Learn to dumb down. I mean,
But
the
you could have
49ers
dumbed
were a
down
defensive team anyways.
Absolutely. You could have dumbed down that offense and probably would have benefited them even more with the talent they had of just outwork.
Going back
the
to
Chiefs.
going back to the Cowboys game, the Cowboys played bad in that game and lost. I mean, it was 13-10 for most of that game, and then they lost, I think, by 8 points. But it was a defensive battle with the other team playing bad. So you didn't have to.
Well, and how does that change for San Francisco this year as being a defensive team with the talent they have, but you don't have your defensive coordinator? You know, how do the schemes change, and how much of that is a defensive coordinator versus we just have a lot of talent? You know, talent, you can have tons of talent, but if you don't put them in the right positions to make a play.
We see that with what Dan Quinn and just 2.5 years ago from a historically bad defense to one of the best.
Yeah.
And really just in that 1 year they were a top 5 defense.
Yeah, I mean they're
after the worst ever.
I would say a top 3 defense for sure, arguably the best defense.
It didn't hurt when you add Michael Parsons.
Yeah.
Either though, but no, I truly believe this is the last year Dan Quinn's going to be the defense coordinator. If things go bad, he may end up as the head
he
coach.
Gets the head coach of the team.
And I've said this on many shows that I've done here that's why Dan Quinn's staying, because this is it. You're either going to make NFC Championship game or win a Super Bowl, which looks great for Dan Quinn as a defense coordinator. He'll go get whatever head coaching job he wants.
Yeah.
Or it goes bad. McCarthy gets fired. Why wouldn't you hire Dan Quinn? Promote that.
Yeah.
So it's just a win-win for him rather than going and getting the Broncos head coaching job. We'll see how
who wouldn't want that Cowboys team?
Yeah, especially that
roster,
defense. But yeah, going back, if it would have been 49ers Chiefs didn't have a great defense last year. So really all it is the Kansas City offense versus the San Francisco defense. That was the main point of the game. And then you're just trying to be good enough the rest.
Chess.
Yeah, that's all it is. And if you're playing chess, you have that veteran quarterback. We saw Tom Brady. He's still putting up numbers, but even last year when he wasn't putting up great numbers, he still willed his team playing chess. That's all Tom Brady did. Before we jump into any other sports, let's talk about TCU. They have a new freshman lineman. What's his name? I already forgot.
Breon Ramsey
Brooks.
Big Bubba, right?
Big Bubba, as he's known around the media.
This kid, 6'5", 455 pounds. I mean, if you see a picture of this kid, he is big. And not just fat, he's big.
Yeah.
But he's tall. 6'5". He's got 6'5" and over 450 pounds. And this kid can move. You watch his Instagram, you see him. This kid can move. It's not just like a big blob there, like you see some teams put in these nose tackles that are just big just to block it up. Yeah. No, this kid's an offensive lineman, and this kid can move, and he's strong.
Offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Where do you go to high school at?
South Oak Cliff, right here in Dallas. That makes sense.
Yeah, so a local kid.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see some of this,
video on it. He's pretty good.
Yeah, go check out his.
Does he play tackle?
Guard, tackle. Even some of the camps I've seen him at, he played center. He snapped the ball, and
he can move for
455 pounds. This kid can move.
It's almost like when you're that size.
I mean, you see some of the best at these camps he's at. You know, these top kids in the nation. He's at these camps, defensive lineman, and he's just throwing them around like it's nothing.
Yeah, I had a past boss that played at UTEP. He was an offensive lineman. He was big. He's about 6'9". And he says that's the only reason he made the NFL because his size. Like, he was pretty good. He's pretty good in college, but when you're that size, if you're at all competent and can move, it's like somebody's going to draft you just to see what can happen.
That's the whole thing. You can't teach size.
Yeah, that's the one thing. And clearly, he's got the speed. He's just got to. You just got to teach him tech. That's the only thing you can do is technique.
Yeah. And if that's all you have to focus on, I mean, you know this as working for, for a potential college opportunity for baseball is you're not just, I got to be talented, but I got to get big too. You have multiple things. If you're that big and you just have naturally gifted something like that and all you're focused on is technique and nothing else matters, man, that's tough.
And you're thinking like size wise, like that's big. And you're talking about, legs and knees not lasting and things like that. But lots of times like, hey, let's get down the weight. Let's get your speed up. But he seems like he can handle that weight pretty well.
You can't teach 6'5".
No.
And that's the difference is when you're big and you can play offensive lineman, that's like that. We always talk about that jump from high school to college is just daunting because everybody, if you're going to go play at a big time college, you were the star in high school. And then you go to college and you kind of get hit and we'll see what he's a freshman. We'll see how it turns out. I don't know. Does it say he's going to be a starter for sure? I can't imagine him not being, unless he just can't get something down. But that's the thing is you can be smaller size if you're talented enough in college. That very rarely translate because we're talking about Deuce, the Cowboys' new running back, Deuce Vaughn. He's very small. That doesn't happen. No. Very rarely you're 5'5" and you're going to go. It doesn't matter how quick
this guy would walk into this room and be the smallest guy in here.
Yeah.
Deuce Vaughn would.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. He's going to end up in the, unless he just crashes. He's at a big time school. So I guess you're going to be in the limelight. You're in the Big 12. Yeah. You're going to play those big games. TCU's defending, or they were in the national championship game. So he could flame out and happen on big time TV, but as long as he's just competent or decent, he's going to be in the NFL. Somebody's going to give him a shot. Just because
size
you
alone,
cannot teach size.
He's big for college. He's big for the pros. He's a big guy.
Even if offensive line fails, you flip him over and put him at a D tackle spot.
Maybe so. Maybe throw him in there.
It seems like he's good. He's blindside tackle, but throw him in at nose guard. What's gonna? Yeah, D tackle. At worst, if he can't make it to the quarterback, put him at D tackle and just let him stop the run.
Yeah.
Like how?
I mean,
you're gonna have to have two guys push him out of the way. It's like just get in there and just be there.
Yeah.
Just make them use two guys to block you.
Yeah.
And before we get to the Manziel document, which is going to take out most of this show, Landen, tell us about give us an update on MLB rookies, what they're kind of doing. At least the top five guys.
I have the top 5, and then the other high school guy that went in the top 10. Max Clark threw 20 at bats with the Tigers, hitting 300. Your big thing was that he didn't really hit for power, a lot of slap stuff, 2 home runs.
What level is this at?
Yeah.
I believe rookie affiliated.
Okay.
Rookie affiliate. 8 RBIs, no stolen bases yet. 1.241 OPS.
Damn.
Yeah.
If you go compare that to the Texas Rangers pick.
So he's already moved up.
He's in high
A ball, yeah.
Yeah, he's hitting in 38 at bats.
He's a real professional baseball now.
Through 38 at bats, hitting 395, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 1.327
and
OPS.
you expect them, and like I was mentioning with preseason, you can only do minor league baseball at a certain because they're working on different things like spring training.
Yeah.
But man, if you're gonna race to the ranks and be a star like he's projected to be, you have to go out and hit 400 almost.
He might be with the Rangers next year.
Season. Yeah, and that's what they talked about because he's a little bit older and he's the guy they talked about. He's going to jump up quickly, and you're talking about just a side note with the Rangers. Evan Carter's coming up possibly this year, but definitely it'd be a disappointment if he wasn't starting game 1 next year. And then this guy, Wyatt Langford,
he had a crazy College World Series, and he seems like he brought it over pretty well.
What he hit in college? 450?
450, something crazy like that. The Golden Spikes winner Dylan Cruz with the Single A affiliate for the Nationals.
He's the big guy that everybody has their eyes on.
Through 33 at bats, .333, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 1 stolen base, .959 OPS.
He might be up with the A's next year just because they don't have it.
He's with the Nationals.
I mean, the Nationals.
Yeah,
They don't-
yeah.
I mean, same difference.
Walker Jenkins,
Not quite as bad.
the other high school guy, he's with the rookie affiliate with the Twins. 26 at bats, 385, a home run, 8 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 1.061 OPS.
And then this last guy's with the A's, right?
Yeah, and I have Paul Skeens, but he's a pitcher, so I'll go after this. Jacob Wilson with the A's, high A affiliate, 36 ABs, .278 average, no home runs, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, .755.
What's his on base
OPS.
percentage? You know that's all they care about.
.755.
What do
So
you mean, Mike?
I
You
think
calling
he
him
was
up soon?
Yeah.
he was what
Got that on base
He's a
percentage.
he's a money ball guy.
the 5 pick. I think he was.
Yeah.
So worse than some guys, but I mean,
But for the pick.
but
yeah.
for the pick, it's not bad. Paul
Wait,
Skeens,
that's more what I would expect from some of these guys coming up.
Because you're
You know,
making
their
that
first month-
transition.
yeah.
You're
Yeah, their
making that
first month
transition.
in pro ball, like, or minor league. I would imagine that's the transition they would make. When
Yeah.
you see some of these other guys hit 395 and like
You expect him to make a
crazy to
dip, but
see.
395 is a dip.
Yeah.
He did dip.
he did from where he was, but at pro ball, I mean, he's
I mean,
handling.
there's-
He's proving that
there's
he's
guys who
handling
went in
this.
the
How long?
third,
How many
fourth
games
round.
is this? How many games he's played in high A ball, Langford?
Was it 30 ABs?
Langford.
Oh, was that the? I thought you were giving me rookie ball numbers.
Yeah, it was 38 ABs.
Okay,
Pretty
does it
much
say
everybody
anything in
has
high A ball
over.
yet?
Like
I don't know if he has
Yeah, I want to say that's just been a
an
week,
at
so they
bat
might
in
not have
high
a lot
yet.
of.
From
That's
what,
such a small sample size.
from
You
what
don't want
I
to say
have,
anything
his
unless it's
MILB.
yeah, you're talking
career
about
was
a dozen
presented.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30 at bats is kind of is a good sample size.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think the lowest amount of at bats is Clark. He has 20, hitting 300.
Yeah.
Paul Skeens through 1 game, 1 inning, no earned runs, 1 strikeout. He topped 100.
Oh, that's pretty
Yeah.
good. That's getting more rare
Yeah,
nowadays. It was before you had lots of pitchers hitting triple digits,
Yeah.
but then again, you don't have very many pitchers going past like 6 innings
yeah.
these days. Usually, if you're good, if you hit 70, 80 pitches, they're going to take you out
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump to the Johnny Manziel documentary. If you have not seen this, go on Netflix. If you don't have Netflix, borrow somebody's password, message us. I'll give you my password. So you have to see this. This is up there. Was up there with the quarterback documentary or quarterback show. I need to watch that too. I haven't watched that, but Johnny Manziel documentary. A lot of bombshells in there. I'm surprised it's not getting more and more. You see Facebook memes of stuff, but let's jump to you, Tony. You're the A&M guy. You're the Manziel guy, like right in the middle of A&M's kind of rise. They built their stadiums what it is now mainly because of Manziel. We'll get into that.
The house that Johnny built is what
It
Kyle
is.
Field. I mean, the money wasn't flowing in. The attention wasn't on Texas A&M. I mean, they moved to the SEC that first year in 2012.
2011, 2012, right?
Yeah,
now.
and they were
He said
they
behind
weren't
the
projected
scenes.
to have a good season at all, and they knocked off number 1 Alabama.
Yeah, they went really, and I think that was the year they went to the Cotton Bowl and played
Yes.
Oklahoma.
Yes.
And when Manziel was the first freshman to win the Heisman, but
Yeah.
we all knew that paying NCAA players money that would be included in here because obviously NITs weren't a deal back then. But Johnny Manziel did say he saw behind the scenes. He saw Texas A&M making over $300 million
Yeah.
after his season. He knew that was directly because of him, because you
Absolutely.
go and see that. I want to say they said the amount of donations and that $300 million were the most, I think, in the last like 4 or 5 seasons combined.
And I wish I had the number. I can't remember the amount of Adidas number 2 Manziel jerseys
Yeah, I
That
have.
was sold. Do you
they
have that number?
I don't.
Sold out.
I put on there to
But they sold out. They couldn't keep them on the shelves. They couldn't make enough.
because
Manziel jerseys.
they printed them for
I mean,
that
you had-
purpose because he's a freshman. They had a rule that you couldn't talk to. I don't know if that's an NCAA rule or
it
A&M
was-
rule.
No, that was Kevin Sumlin's.
Kevin Sumlin's rule. He can't
that
talk
his
to the
freshmen
media,
wouldn't talk to media,
and they
Yeah.
weren't going to have his
So
jerseys
which
for
that's
sale.
what makes this even more. Is when you have a freshman doing this and you don't even know anything about him. You can't talk to him. He's not doing press conferences. I mean, I don't think he spoke to the media until you got to
They introduced him in like
that-
preseason the next
but-
year.
no
he-
the
or the
well,
Heisman. Yeah, the
I mean,
Heisman.
that's the
First
first
time he
time you
talked to
really get
media.
to hear from him. I mean, the documentary showed that. I mean, the partying,
Yeah,
it's
I want to bring
crazy.
that up. So before he even played a snap at A&M, and they talk. I'm sorry. What's the offensive coordinator? He's a
Cliff Kingsbury.
Cliff Kingsbury. Yeah, because Arizona Cardinals. Before he went to the Cardinals, before he went to Texas Tech, Manziel kind of made him too, and he was talking about him getting in trouble and getting arrested before all that, and he was telling us I don't know if it was boosters or people high up in A&M. He's like, no matter what, he's the guy. Like, we can try to control him or whatever, but I don't care what he does. He's going to be the guy. And Kevin Sumlin, it's funny, Manziel kind of talked about this. Kevin Sumlin made a comment. This was out of character for Manziel. And he said, well, in hindsight, maybe it wasn't out of character for me. Like,
Yeah.
after you see him through through college and through the NFL. But yeah, going back to the jerseys, like he's talking about, we're sitting here not allowed to have a job. And I just see A&M making money hand over fist with jerseys. And that was one of the things, like, before they had the NIL deals, we were talking about how could they pay college players, and that was the thing.
Yeah.
Is like that seemed like a fair thing. Jersey
Compensate
sales,
them for jersey sales, yeah,
or
absolutely.
autographs or whatever, and that's really
Yeah.
where we get with Manziel. And that's one thing or he talked about it like he didn't think it was a big deal until they beat Alabama. And then they leave, and he's like, "Holy crap! This is the first time I've never been able to find my parents
Yeah.
after a game." Like it
And
hit
all
him.
he wanted to do was just get out of there. Like it all of that came down on him. You know, you're in a small town. I mean, College Station, relatively now, if you go to College Station, because since Manziel, it's blown up. It's a huge university.
Yeah, Texas high school football, even in high school, you get some of that. If you ever seen shows like, or even the movie version, Friday Night Lights, at big time high school programs, that's what it's like.
Yeah, but he was at a small high school with Kerrville,
Kerrville.
Texas, and then you go to College Station, which, in hindsight, it's small.
Before he
it's a small, it's
made
a
his big
bubble,
stake,
and I
it was
think he
pretty
even
small.
used the term some sort. It's like a bubble. You're like in this cage of College Station. So that's changed. A&M is not that small little bubble anymore, and for him, he was a guy that actually didn't want to go to A&M. He wanted to go to the University of
UT.
Texas. I think he was recruited also at
I don't-
Oregon.
I don't
think
think
it was one
UT
that-
offered him. I think that's
No.
why he didn't go.
He wanted to go to UT, and he didn't get the offer. I don't know if they wouldn't have offered it, but it was like A&M came up with a full offer, and he's like, "Yeah, take it."
Yeah,
It's A&M's. Even though he took them to another level, they're a big time college program.
yeah.
They were up there. They weren't. We're not talking
Yeah.
about.
And he was going to have the opportunity on even a bigger stage of playing in the
Playing
SEC.
in the SEC.
Having that opportunity to beat Alabama, where he wouldn't have had that
Yeah.
playing in the Big 12. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about the documentary? What did you take out of it?
The oil field was the biggest. Like, I kind of just had it playing in the background. Like, I don't really watch TV and stuff like that. And that was one of the things that I like. Was just like looking over, checking the stuff, and then I heard the oil field. I was like, "Oh, I want to hear about this," because growing up, I've heard, "Oh no, he has all this stuff because it was oil field money."
Yeah,
and
that
then
was-
it
that was
came out,
part
and
of
it was
right?
like, yeah, his friend was like,
completely.
"Oh, that was
fabricated.
I just completely made that up."
Yeah, because he's driving a Mercedes. They're saying he had at any one point he had $100,000
And I remember hearing that.
Under a mattress.
under his mattress
And-
at college.
And he was like sending some of it to his grandfather, and it's like, "Hey, can you write me a
Yeah.
check or whatever?"
Yeah,
And I remember, I didn't at the time. I wasn't big into having to keep up because of sports podcasting. A lot of it just kind of gets drowned in the media. Nobody really cares. You're like, when they talk about Cam Newton or Jameis Winston and stuff like that, like, okay, these guys are spoiled kings of whatever. They don't get in trouble or whatever you want to say.
yeah.
You think, yeah, there's truth to it. Who cares? Whatever. It is what it is. And then you just hear big, and I remember that stuck in my head. I don't remember a time when I sat and watched it, but I thought they had money too. Until I saw that, and I'm like, oh yeah, the big oil mine. Like, they had nothing. Like, they're being interviewed in big houses and stuff like his parents were. I'm like, that's probably money he made in the NFL or signing autographs.
Yeah, who would have known? So that was the thing. Is him and his friend were like, man, how do I get away with driving a, Mercedes and having all this cash and doing all these things, and they're taking trips to Florida and to these signings. So that's something that they had to create a story. They had to say, well, otherwise they're going to know I'm making money. So, oh yeah, well, he just came from oil field money.
It had a lot of ESPN 30 for 30 Pony Express vibes going.
Yeah.
Like when they talked about what's his name from skipped A&M. A&M. He's talking about he went to SMU. Eric Dickerson.
Yeah.
Went to SMU. He's like, yeah, A&M put the down payment on the car, but SMU made the payments. And like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, A&M? That I say I committed. You're going to tell them, hey, we bought you this car.
Yeah.
It wasn't A&M. I'm sure A&M turned a blind eye to a lot of stuff. So it wasn't quite.
I mean, you're
what
talking
SMU
about
did
Pony
it.
Express. That was in the 80s.
That was
going on.
SMU doing it though.
Yeah.
I'm sure A&M did something for him to make money, but obviously he made the majority of his money signing autographs and stuff like that. And now you see lots of pictures, and I guess it's hindsight. And as Johnny Manziel talked about, he was probably high or drunk most of the time, anyways. But he has pictures of him signing autographs, holding big wads of cash in hotel rooms. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm surprised this didn't come out sooner.
Yeah.
Like, you can trust
media,
people.
The internet were different then,
Yeah, and we were talking about it. We'll jump because Manti Te'o was kind of talked about in this, and you had mentioned it, and we posted on social media about Manti Te'o and Johnny Manziel. These are arguably two of the biggest stories in college football. Not just in 2012, just in general. Yeah. Huge stories. And the media, in both cases, kind of got tricked.
Yeah, they were duped.
Or duped. Yeah, it's like stuff comes out later, but they had, in this Heisman Trophy ceremony, you had them doing stories on Manti Te'o's girlfriend who supposedly had cancer and all this, and they couldn't meet when he was getting catfished the whole time. But you have big, not just like, oh yeah, he has it comes out that he was catfished. No, they did huge stories on this.
Yeah.
And then the Manziel oil thing, they both got duped, and that was kind of not the infancy of the internet, and internet scams have been around as long as that, but the catfish wasn't really a term. I think the Manti Te'o story is where most people learned what catfish was.
Yeah.
That's, and imagine a side story, how big that story was then, before it was found out, Manti Te'o's thing, the person that was doing it had been freaking out.
Yeah.
You imagine you're doing that to somebody, and then you're like, oh, they're Notre Dame.
And then it gets big.
They're Notre Dame athlete. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've seen that documentary as well. Mm-hmm. Was it a 30 for 30? Or was
I think so.
Or was it? No, it was Netflix. It was like, I think it was
It might have been the same thing.
I want to say it was a couple of episodes.
Was it?
But maybe, I don't know.
One.
No, you're right. It's the same thing. And I mean, due to such a level of, and we were talking about this, and at the time I didn't know, I bought this book on Amazon in 2014, right after Johnny Manziel was drafted by the Browns, a book Jim Dent wrote.
And a very notable, respected author of sports stories.
And this was book one of what he was calling a trilogy. Book 1 of 3 he was going to write about Johnny Manziel and this life story. And I mean, even to go so far as to putting all these details together of all these, the history and oil and all this, and to find out, man, you got duped and wrote a freaking book about it. Why didn't you do your due diligence to figure out that you weren't even writing a book, a biography type book? He's a New York best-selling author.
And it's funny, I don't know what links you, and he was just a college quarterback. Again, nothing he did, I mean, we're talking drugs and alcohol and underage stuff, but signing the autographs and making all that money, there was nothing illegal about that. It was against NCAA rules, and Manziel goes talk about the hatred for the NCAA, you're making so much money. And Manziel's one where you can say whatever arguments the NCAA usually has, we're making money, but they get full ride scholarships. Texas A&M made over $300 million.
Yeah.
You could say, okay, what's the difference? How much more did they make? But it's still hundreds of millions of dollars more in donations, and freaking built a stadium for him, or not for him, because of him.
Yeah.
But you're getting a full ride scholarship. That's not. You're getting paid.
We're talking about a couple $100,000,
and not. And again, he didn't. I'm not saying A&M didn't give him. I don't know. Nothing's been proven. I'm sure there's something wrong there, but everybody does that. But he was signing autographs and making money. Really, a victimless crime if there is one.
He was signing autographs for the university, for them to give to donors, for them to
he
auction
was
off.
And he was having like promoters and people and big people coming up to him and or coming to his friend who was his business manager, and saying, "We'll pay you, just sign autographs." And like I said, whatever you want to say, yes, he was breaking the rules the NCAA had put on there. The saying, they want to say all these things. The university shouldn't have to pay these kids. Okay, there's something to be said for that. Oh wait, but y'all can't go out and get jobs either. That's
you can't. You
can't find a way to make money. You can't accept. Who was it? I want to say, I can't remember which coach it was, but he had bought a sandwich for a kid, or bought a lunch for a kid, and got in trouble for that. Because I remember Coach K talking about it and saying, went out and he was trying to sign his. He's like, I can't buy you lunch. It's like, so he bought Coach K lunch. Like, he cannot buy him lunch because that's against the rules, and that's a whole nother episode we could talk about. And that's what Manziel said. I had a hatred for them. I couldn't make any money.
Yeah.
So I just went and signed autographs. He wasn't doing anything.
I would say probably the origination of what the NCAA and what they were trying to do is to eliminate a situation like this with Johnny, where a kid doesn't need that type of money. You saw there's plenty of social media. I mean, Johnny Manziel, there's pictures of him in college, drunk at parties, high at like partying his ass off.
Meeting Drake.
Didn't he get drafted at 22?
I think it was early because he only played 2 years.
Yeah, he came in at 18.
He came in at 18. Yeah, he left at 18, 19. Yes, he would have been about 20 when he was drafted.
Yeah.
So, but this is the reason that the NCAA says they have what they have, right? Is to protect these kids. But this is a rare situation. Johnny Manziel was going off the rails with or without this money this way.
Did he say win or lose, we booze?
Yeah,
that was his thing. Before he was even big time, that's just what he did. That's what college kids do. That's what some high school kids do.
Kingsbury said it in there is, man, he could play ball. Like, he was going to ball whether he was drunk, hungover. I mean, there was even at one of the games, I think it was against Mississippi State.
He came in like hungover.
He came in hungover.
The all-black uniform.
Yeah, when they wore the all... And
he said, you better play good.
And you have to play good. And he did play pretty well.
It was one of his best games at the time, and he was like, okay.
What are we going to do?
Yeah, it is.
And that's sad, though, that those guys that should have been mentoring and stuff, like, turned a blind eye to it. But what else are you going to do with that kid? I mean, if you cut him off the team, it's not going to make any difference. I mean, there was no transfer portal for him to go into. He was just going to go party.
Yeah.
And his football career probably would have been done then.
Johnny Manziel, however you look at it, if you want to look at NCAA rules, morality rules, even legality, he's not innocent whatsoever.
No.
But the thing he was getting most in trouble for, what he got suspended half a game for, what all these lies were about, oil money and everything, was that he went and signed autographs. I get the rules where you can only practice for so many hours a week because these kids are going to college, and you don't want them in a situation where they have to work for money, so they just say they're not allowed to work and do it. But if he's going to go spend a couple hours just signing autographs, that's a victimless crime if you ever say it.
Well, like now, with their being able to use their image and likeness, for advertising, and
Johnny Manziel would have made twice as much more money now.
He wouldn't have needed the NFL. He wouldn't have needed anything. Just his name alone at this point would have made. He
probably would have played another year in A&M because that's where a lot of the partying was an issue, but everything was, the investigations and everything were around.
Yeah.
He was making so much money, and then we get to the comments on the oil money, and you have Jim Dent writing a book. You have Skip Bayless, Colin Cowherd talking about, hey, it's oil money, which now it's funny to look back and listen, like, I remember hearing those, and that's brilliant by his friend. I don't know what his friend does. He was interviewed in there. Apparently they don't talk anymore, but he's got to be some sort of, business. Like, I don't look at him as he's come out and like he's a con artist or anything. That's what businesses, you're talking about Manti Te'o getting scammed.
Yeah.
Sure, you scam the media by saying this, but what other business doesn't do something like just say this is, fudge it the right way? And again, there was nothing illegal about that part of what they were doing outside of the drugs and the underage drinking, because they were saying they were 18, 19, 20 years old, clearly underage, and partying with Snoop Dogg and Drake and everybody. Like, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody said anything then. Like, you knew what was happening. He's friends with Drake. You're not going to go out with Drake and be like, oh, sorry, man, I'm too young. I can't do that. And obviously everybody close to Manziel knew.
Well, and then he goes to Cleveland. This was in the documentary too, and goes to a night in Vegas, has a costume, has a wig and a fake mustache on. I mean, it was at that level that he had to party so bad.
That's when they let him go because he had missed the flight. And instead of figuring out what the hell I'm going to do, he's like, he just went deeper and say, hey, I'm just going to cover this up and, or block this out in my head, which he talked about it that he's like, people told me I was doing this on purpose because I didn't want to be there. And I was wanting it to, and he's like, when they released me, the weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I'm kind of disappointed they didn't even go further into it and talk about when he went to the CFL. And he was kind of off it by then. Like, we knew he partied, but we didn't know the level until we saw the documentary.
Yeah. And I mean, he eventually, he had to check into treatment.
Multiple times.
Yeah. He, was, later, diagnosed with bipolar. There's a lot of things that were going on, regardless of A&M, regardless of success. This guy was gonna have a troubled life. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? I mean, when you deal with those kinds of things, I mean, I'm sure there could have been some depression involved in that. I mean, who knows what this kid was actually going through? And especially after your freshman year at 18 years old, you're put on this pedestal, right? You are College Station. You are there. It is not what it is today if Johnny isn't there and has that freshman season.
Yeah.
After that, then it was basically a fall from that point. He wasn't prepared for what was going to come in 2012.
Yeah. And again, it's a big time. I mean, just because you're in Texas playing Division I, Texas
the
college football. Yeah. And then going to the
SEC.
SEC. That's a big deal. There's a lot of pressure. And then again, going back to high school football, even though it's not a huge program, but he was winning there. And even we know our alma mater is nothing in football, but there's a lot of politics that are surrounded by the football program, even though most years they win 2 or 3 games. Now imagine your team's winning and how much the quarterback is. Maybe a lot of the alcohol abuse started because of pressure. Then I don't know if he just likes to party, but obviously has an addictive personality.
Yeah.
And once you have that, and that's what I'm saying. If some people have addictive personalities, but if you don't start the drinking or the drugs, it's a very simplified way to put it. I don't mean to offend anybody, but you don't do that in situations where you don't need to. Like, if I need a drink, that's the worst time to have a drink.
Yeah.
Honestly, especially if you have an addictive personality. And that may have been where it started. It was interesting. If you watch a documentary, his first time, the quarterback, they called, I forget what the play was, but basically they clear the way for him to run down
a
trap play. He ran like 80 yards or 85 yards for a touchdown. They have a flag. It was holding. They're back to the 10-yard line, and they're calling the play. He's looking at it. He's like, son of a bitch. They called the trap play again, and then he runs for another 90 yards for a touchdown. Yeah. And that was his introduction into being a starting quarterback in Texas high school football. And when you start off big like that,
I mean, he was putting up numbers a season that some people were looking at thinking,
they thought it was a typo, or that was his career. Like, that's 70 touchdowns.
He was 70
in one
season.
75 touchdowns in one. He was averaging 7 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. I mean, this kid really was kind of a prodigy, right? What was he, 5'10", maybe?
Yeah. I can't remember. I know he said he modeled some of his game after Vince Young, and I can't remember what other quarterback he said pump faked, and he would start using the pump fake. I can't remember. He said it was an NFL quarterback pump faked, and the guy jumped, and he's like, he loved that. He was going to use the pump fake. That was his move. It was great. Let's talk about. I think a good part of this where it's just like it just got ridiculous. You're like, holy crap, this is way further down the rails. Is when they had in the documentary, his agent Eric Burkhart was talking. It was just talking about the combine and his workouts and what they had to do just to get him to the draft.
Yeah, daily drug tests just so they could prove and show, oh, look, we've taken 30 drug tests and they're all good.
That's where they talked about, like, you had to four-string quarterback at A&M taking drug tests for him.
Yeah.
But that's not how it worked. You couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So Manziel came to Burkhart and said, I don't think I can pass a drug test. He didn't even know.
No, this is the night before they're going to the combine.
Yeah.
He wakes up in a hotel room. He's like, I don't even know
I don't know
happened.
how I got here. Yeah. So they're like, oh, what do we do? And so they made us
throw out, if you go back, maybe not Landen, hopefully not Landen, where you've had nights like that. But I've never had a night where, like, I don't know how I ended up here. I've had nights like I don't remember a lot, but just to be like, I might not be, like, you don't even know if you can pass a drug test right now.
He went this entire time, night before the combine, this happens, or, night before he needs to go to the combine. They made up this whole story then with his parents of that his dad had chest pain or something so that he could fly out to buy him a day. And they're bringing in all these jugs of water and Gatorade, and he's just drinking just to flush his system out. And they're taking drug tests after drug tests. Oh, yeah, we're almost there. Oh, almost there. Keep drinking. Almost there. Like, how
and now
ridiculous.
that flags it like, hey, you're too high. It didn't fail the test, but it makes it inconclusive or something.
Yeah.
Where you've been drinking too much water. And usually being an athlete, you're like, no, I'm an athlete. I drink lots of water.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, they can't get you on it, but and then I guess eventually he passed it because that was just the whole goal is to get him drafted.
But then the crazy thing, and maybe this is a test to the 2 years in college and the fame and glory that he gained that fast, is he was like highly acclaimed for his interview processes and how mature he seemed and how well he interviewed and answered questions was a big thing that all the NFL teams talked about.
And then when you hear about the night before and how things are going, and then you watch an interview that he was giving, you're thinking, dude, he probably feels like crap. He's got a hangover or God knows.
But obviously through college, he proved that he lived that way. I think that was his life.
You're thinking about, I'm just here. I love the opportunity to be here. I'm doing this. And they're asking him questions. I'm like, that dude has had a crazy week, stressful week just trying to, I don't know how stressed out he was. But his agent was surely stressed out. Like, hey, you need to pass a drug test, stay clean. You need to do well, which he knocked it out of the park in his workouts. He was doing great.
The night before his pro day, him and all his receivers go out partying. He shows up. He's hungover,
throwing to his lawyer or something.
His lawyer and his agent.
Yeah,
they had to line up because the receivers didn't show up because they were all hungover.
Yeah,
it was just completely like you kind of knew this kid was like.
That sounds like a scheme intentional because it makes him look a little better. Like, hey, I wasn't out partying. I'm good. And his his receivers can't. That might be in essence, like obviously hindsight's 2020. It probably looked better on him that
he was living such a reckless life, but all the people around him were turning a blind eye. Yeah,
they're like, hey, it's not a problem for us because you are still.
They were riding his coattails for where he was going to go to the NFL and looking to make money. And I'm sure he made more money on Nike deals and signing autographs more so than he ever made under NFL contracts.
Because the only time it was a problem is when he was in Cleveland and he wasn't putting up those numbers.
Yeah.
Let's just think, what's a controversial quarterback right now to that level in the NFL? Let's just throw out Aaron Rodgers is
Watson.
He's kind of had issues too, but hey, it's funny, it's Cleveland too. But if Deshaun Watson misses a game because he went and partied in Vegas, are the Browns letting him go? He's been showing better numbers than Manziel. But anyway, if he's putting up numbers for a team, gets suspended or gets fined. He's not but he wasn't putting up numbers. He was looking like a bust. They were having issues. They send him to rehab and then he can't make it back and they just say, screw it, we're done.
Yeah.
If Johnny Manziel in college misses a game for A&M because he can't fly back, A&M suspends him or something. They're not gonna fire him cut him because they know, hey, he's doing it just like Cliff Kingsbury said. He was like, you better play good, and he plays good. He's like, okay, it's not a problem as long as he shows up. And that, I don't know if it kind of shows a bad look on Cliff Kingsbury that he said it like that, as now that he's back in college and he's a mentor and offensive coordinator, and you're like, do we really want to send our kid to USC now and have Cliff Kingsbury mold? Be like, I understand from his point of stance, he wouldn't be able to do anything. He's like, dude, we're going to be.
I mean, are we going to
going against the grain here?
On the line.
We're going to go against the grain to try to stop him and mold him, and he's not going to play well because we're doing this. A lot of times you let things like that slide, like, baseball players who have weird ass swings. Like, hey, it works, let it go. But this is completely a different scenario.
Yeah.
Where, yes, your job is to win, but your job in college is also to mold these guys.
The parent, a family sends a kid to college expecting that, they're not going to be there, that university or JUCO or whatever it is going to take care of their kid, that they're sending them to a good place. These guys were just like,
and I know we're running out of time, but you were talking about where he went to high school, that they kind of had a military type thing where everybody does everything. All the players do the same things.
Dress the same way.
Yeah.
No one wears.
And he said going into A&M, it wasn't near as bad starting off because he still had some of that discipline. But he said after that first year, they didn't care and it was gone. Like any of that discipline he had from then was completely gone. And it's interesting. Like if you would have kept some of that structure, like how would it have changed? Like, okay, don't make him stop drinking or doing whatever, but have some sort of structure. At A&M, it was just, and we didn't even talk about it. He had, Cleveland said he wasn't watching any film, and his agent was like, surely he's got to watch some. And then it goes to Johnny. He's like, zero. I watched zero film. Just like you go back to what's his name? LSU quarterback. Can't remember his name. Jamarcus Russell. Yeah. Who was even worse than Manziel in that standpoint, just didn't watch it.
Yeah, they would like send him stuff with
blank tapes or something. He'd be like, yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, I watched the coverages and this. Yeah, he would just.
And Johnny didn't even care. He's like, no, I just didn't watch it. I watched zero. And you wonder, would that have been
He watched zero tape and outshined guys in college like Mike Evans and Myles Garrett.
I'm surprised Mike Evans wasn't in there. I don't know if Mike Evans wanted nothing to do with that. Mike Evans might have done some questionable stuff too. But I don't know if they're on the same, if they're friends or whatever.
Just like, what he was saying, win or lose, we booze. I think that was probably a good majority of the team.
Your star wide receiver, yeah, and we all know Mike Evans isn't, a choir boy either. He's had his issues, not necessarily getting in trouble, but questionable things. And I was waiting for Mike Evans. Maybe Mike Evans was like, I'm staying away from that. I'm in a good place right now.
Yeah.
I need to get comments from my co-host on the sports page, Chris Robb, because he played with Manziel in the fan-controlled football league. That wasn't obviously shown on the Netflix documentary. I want to see how Manziel was. I'm sure he wasn't buddy with him, but I know they were on the same team part of the time, so I want to see if he was still like, hey, we're partying, because they were all in the same. I think Atlanta. I know they were in Georgia. I think it was Atlanta. Like they did the whole league.
Everybody was there.
Yeah, everybody was in there. But yeah, guys, we are out of time on this episode. I hope we were entertaining for you guys. Thank you for continuing to support our channel, our network. Be sure to check out as soon as this video is over. Go and look at all of our other videos. Sports Page, Bungalow Sports Show, the new Bungalow Fight Show, Sports Biz with Tony Nix. Just check them all out and subscribe. Hit that notification button. And until next time, I'm Ashton.
I'm Tony.
I'm Landen.
We'll see you guys later.